days had passed since Khaled had watched over the photographer's shop and apprehended the thief. He had had much simpler jobs after that, with nothing of note happening. Coincidentally, he had started seeing the photographer on the streets in passing, sharing hellos and other niceties. Today was not unlike the others, with Khaled rising with the sun and making for the bulletin board. Any time he walked in town now, whether it be along his street or any path, Khaled kept an eye out for the preacher. Though he had nothing against Ulrich, he had almost everything against the preacher, and was not looking to reconvene with him. Luckily, he didn't see him today, and made it to the board peacefully. When he arrived, he started looking through all the postings under the job section as usual, but his attention was quickly stolen away when he saw a particular note on the general section. Largely at the top of the paper was written Khaled, and so, naturally, Khaled took it off and read the remainder. Underneath its name was written, "I ask that you return to the cartographers as soon as you can. There's a very important issue I'd like to address. Sincerely, Ellis Odom." Amazed more than confused, Khaled pocketed the note and made for the cartography shop. He could only assume that Ellis Odom was the name of the old man, as he had never bothered to ask what the man's name was. Within a few minutes, Khaled was opening up the door to the shop. Upon entering, everything seemed the same. The map sat on the shelves, and the cartographer, or Mr. Odom, Khaled now assumed, was standing by the counter.
I got your note on the bulletin board. You are Mr. Odom, correct?
Khaled asked, still walking towards him. Yes, I am. I'm very glad you came today, as I would have been in a little more of a troubling situation if you hadn't, Mr. Odom replied.
Sir?
Khaled said, clearly prying into what he meant. Young Khaled, there's someone I'd like you to meet. Deary's here. Mr. Odom called to a side room across from the one where the thief had broken in. Khaled turned to face where he was calling to, and watched as the door opened. Out came a young woman that looked to be the same age as Khaled. She had long white hair that fell to her lower back, beautiful rich blue eyes that stared right at Khaled as she exited, fair pale skin that looked unblemished in the slightest, and an overall air of grace to her when she walked. She wore a dress that had a design Khaled had never seen before, consisting of blue trimmings along the gray fabric and a blue circle in the middle to accompany. She wore boots of the same hue of blue, and made the impression that she was put together clothes-wise and as a person. This, Mr. Odom said as he came out from behind the counter, is Apollonia. She's something of a granddaughter to me, though not by blood. Apollonia, dear, this is Khaled. Apollonia was the first to extend her hand, which Khaled swiftly took. Oh man, I have to do a voice for Apollonia. Okay. It's lovely to meet you. Mr. Odom told me of your protecting this place, Apollonia said, a faint smile appearing on her face as she talked. However, Khaled noticed she was similar to him, and didn't offer much emotion in her words.
I see. In any case, lovely to meet you as well.
Khaled returned to her. The two broke hands, and Mr. Odom came hobbling up to them. You two seem to have hit it off just fine, haven't you? The old cartographer smiled. The two now looked at him.
Indeed,
Khaled said.
Now, about this issue you wrote of.
Mr. Odom continued to smile. My boy, you just met her. Khaled was now perplexed.
Sir, I'm not sure I follow.
Khaled added. Young Khaled, Mr. Odom said. Apollonia here is in need of someone to, protect her. After seeing your reliability the other day, I figured that you'd be the perfect person to offer just that. You're quick to act, level-headed, and skilled with a sword. Khaled was taken aback, all while Apollonia stood silently.
Sir, I'm not sure I fully grasp this. You would trust me with watching over someone you obviously hold dear after one mild job. I didn't even use my sword.
Khaled, while staying calm as usual, was getting a little passionate about this. It was a large
So, protection. Does that entail I escort her about?
Khaled was beginning to consider the proposition.
Coming around, are you? Mr. Odom smirked. Well, that would be correct, but it's more than that. She'd be living with you.
Khaled now turned to face Apollonia, who still stayed quiet.
Live with me, Mr. Odom. I have no spare bed. Besides, I wouldn't wish to force my life upon her.
Khaled tried to reason. Mr. Odom now moved to stand at Apollonia's side.
Though she doesn't know it, she's been through worse than doing jobs around town.
Mr. Odom teased.
Isn't that right, Apollonia?
Apollonia nodded.
Well, I'd have to get a bed for you. Oh, I'm sorry, though she doesn't show it. I have to get a bed for you. I'd have to get a bed for you, Khaled thought out loud. I'd be able to help with that. Apollonia now pitched in. See, it's a bonding experience, and the day is still very young, so you'd have one before sunset, Mr. Odom planned out.
Khaled considered all this and finally exclaimed,
Very well. I'm not one to turn down someone in need.
You could see another faint smile come to Apollonia's face, and a very large one to Mr. Odom's.
Thank you very much, Apollonia said, and I promise I won't be a hindrance. I didn't expect you to, Khaled responded, trying to be nice. Well then, you two, Mr. Odom interjected. You'd better get started on that bed hunt.
The two nodded, bid farewell to the cartographer, and left for town.
So, Khaled said, facing ahead while they walked, how do you know Mr. Odom?
Apollonia responded, also facing forwards.
He's someone who's been helping me through troubling times.
Khaled nodded slightly.
I see, he continued. And he said he considers you a granddaughter. Yes, well, he never married, he has told me, and so to help with me has been what he believes to be like having a granddaughter, Apollonia informed. I see.
Khaled grew a little quiet now, and Apollonia picked up on this.
Is something the matter?
She asked softly.
No,
Khaled said with less emotion than usual.
It's just that my grandfather raised me and he has since passed.
I'm sorry to hear that then, Apollonia comforted. The two continued to walk, making limited small talk due to Khaled's habit of being taciturn. Eventually, evening came. The two had succeeded in finding a bed for Apollonia and getting it into Khaled's home. It sat on the opposite side of the house from where Khaled's bed was, as his house didn't have multiple rooms, but rather had one large room that was shaped like an L. As the two were getting ready to go to sleep for the night, they both sat on the edges of their beds, facing each other.
So,
Apollonia started to say,
what does a normal day consist of for you? I get up in the morning, head to the bulletin board, look for jobs, and whatever jobs are available dictate what I do for the day,
Khaled informed.
Of course, I guess you'll be accompanying me now,
He added.
That sounds like a fine day,
Apollonia responded.
It was clear the conversation had run as far as it was going to, and so both of them settled in their sheets and waited the next day.
Khaled was the first to rise in the morning. He looked over to see Apollonia still sleeping, and so he continued to lay until she woke. It annoyed him slightly to have to wait on someone else to start his day, but he was still patient, and so he lay. About half an hour, she rose.
Good morning,
she called out groggily.
Good morning,
he mirrored. The sun was already fully above the horizon when the two of them left the house. They walked side by side as they crossed the streets that led to the bulletin board. While they walked, it had dawned on Khaled that he had not been able to really use his sword in quite some time. Just a random thought in his head, he dismissed it, but still hoped that some job today would give him that opportunity. When they arrived at the bulletin board, Khaled started scanning the job listings as usual. Meanwhile, Apollonia looked over the general posts, keeping herself occupied.
Look,
she pointed out to Khaled, who turned his head to what she was referencing.
Someone grabbed this one in quite a hurry.
Apollonia was referencing to a nailed pin on the board that held a thin strip of ripped paper that obviously used to hold a note. It was little things
Sorry to disappoint, but there's nothing worthwhile today. Rest assured that's rare. The two sat in a silence for a good second, mulling over what to do, before Apollonia offered. Shall we go say good morning to Mr. Hodum, then? Khaled agreed, and they made off for their mutual friend. When they arrived, the main room was empty. Strange, Khaled muttered. He's usually behind the counter. They walked a little farther in, looking around before Apollonia called out at a medium volume. Mr. Hodum? As if in response to this, the door to their right opened, and out came Mr. Hodum. However, they both noticed that he was not his cheery self. Apollonia, my dear, he began in a subtle panic. This town isn't safe for you. Apollonia's eyes opened wide in disbelief as Khaled walked a little closer in curiosity. But, Mr. Hodum, I just arrived yesterday. Besides, I thought you said this town was too small. Apollonia said, I thought it would be, but it turns out nowhere is safe, it seems. Oh, my dear, I hate to do this to you, but you're going to have to move again. It was apparent this hurt Mr. Odom to tell to Apollonia, and there was an ample amount of fear in his expression. Now Khaled joined in, saying, Apollonia's to leave? Is this a common pattern of your moving? Mr. Odom's face rose to face Khaled, as if only now realizing he was in the room. Young Khaled, I know this is possibly the largest task I could ask of you, but you'll have to travel with Apollonia. Khaled's heart dropped for a split second. Sir, what? For what possible reason would you need me to travel with her? I only met her yesterday. If her moving is common, then surely she has others who are much better suited for accompanying her during this. Apollonia couldn't help but to look at whoever was talking, trying to process the situation herself. She jumped in, saying, What possible development could you have found in between yesterday and today? You've lived in this town for years now. It's true, Mr. Odom said, and for all of those years it would have been hospitable for you, but now it no longer is. You're to leave immediately. I don't want to take any chances. Apollonia seemed to understand, but Khaled was still questioning the ordeal. Again, may I ask, why me as well? Mr. Odom turned to face Khaled again and said in a serious tone, Because she needs protection, and you're the only one who can offer that right now. It's true she did have others that helped her get here, but they and I have since cut ties so that we wouldn't seem connected. Also, I thought this would be the final place Apollonia would have to move. The three of them stood in silence for a moment before Khaled finally broke in. I'll go then, he said. Just tell me where we'll be going. Mr. Odom gained a worried expression again. That's the problem, my boy. There's nowhere left to go as of right now, and so you two would be vagabonds. The cartographer informed both of them. Even to Apollonia this was news, but Khaled could tell she understood that this was the only option, so they both agreed to the situation. Before they left the shop to go gather anything they might need, Mr. Odom stopped them. Wait, you two, he called. Take this with you. When they turned to face him, he was holding a map in his hands. Khaled took it from him, thanking him. This is the closest thing you'll find to a map of all of Citelia on a single piece of paper. It's my life's work, really. The two thanked him even more than leaving the shop for what they could only imagine might be forever. What will you be grabbing? Apollonia asked Khaled as they walked back to his house. My gold, Khaled responded. And really, that's it. I don't have much else that's valuable, and it'd be cumbersome to carry more anyway. They continued the rest of the way in silence until they eventually reached their destination. Khaled grabbed all the gold he had, which was scattered across the home in different bags and places, compiled it all into one big pouch, and stood in the middle of the room. Will you miss it? Apollonia said softly, picking up on a sense of melancholy. A little, Khaled muttered. It is my house, after all. He took it all in, getting one last mental image of his abode before he left it for quite some time. It was a place he felt comfortable in, a place he turned to every day to protect him, a place that was his alone. However, he now had a duty that was above a trivial job, and so he swallowed his sorrow and exited through the front door, Apollonia following. Alright, that was chapter 2. I hope you
5 right now. So yeah, keep on the lookout for more videos. I'm always working on this story. It's a big passion of mine. It's just writing is very time consuming.